Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the live episode. This is Prepper Talk Radio, the in living color living podcast presentation tonight. I don't know what I just want to say so many things. You guys, thanks for being part of the show. Everyone that's already in the chat, you're lighting it up. This is awesome. And of course, I'm joined with Shane and Paris. What's up, my brothers?
Evening.
Yo.
Welcome.
This is
Good
exciting.
to see everybody here.
This is the best. And if you're just joining us, you are just in time. We're going to hit some hard questions on financial preparedness. We'll hit some of the stuff going on in the news. But we want to get your feedback. What are you doing to be better financially prepared? But we're also going to use one of our local gurus. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy. His name is Paris Clough. He runs a financial awesome channel, Financial Self-Reliance. And you're in the process of rebranding that, right?
Yeah. So, I'm going to say Financial Self-Reliance as my company, but because I believe in being self-reliant, but I'm going to rebrand for myself as like Paris Clough. So, the back end is going to be that, but I'm also rebranding, like helping people. I know Mike, Mike's on my channel quite a bit, watching my shorts and other things.
Paris, we keep losing you on the digital feed. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, dang. Sorry.
Oh, he's back. Basically, guys, go follow Financial Self-Reliance. It's going to change to Paris Clough. He has a cool group he's starting called the MBA, Get Your MBA, Massive Bank Accounts. But he is our standardized but smarter world's way of investing, but he has a really cool practical approach and some other things you can do. And then we have in this corner, so that's one corner. In the other corner, we have all gold and silver, no fiat or fancy.
Or any kind of financial instruments or anything. Or
Shane, the Burt Gummer, prepared guy. And then you've got me, who will be refereeing tonight, but also bringing in some nonsensical delight to the conversation because I dabble in both a little bit. And so I'll be the third wheel, if you will, of this wobbling tricycle tonight. It's going to be a fun show. I'm actually really excited because we're going to cover a lot. And
the big wheel was my favorite ride when I was a kid. I loved my big wheel.
Well, the big wheel is good. Tricycles, though, are wobbly.
I had a trike, and it was a wobbly trike. It was wobbly, but the big wheel was a lot of fun.
Those big wheels, I mean,
they were closer to the ground. Center of gravity was much better.
You could do burnouts in those things. They were amazing.
We played Crash Derby, my brother and I love that.
Speaking of Crash Derby, what is going on in the world of finance?
So we want to.
It's a mess.
I presented today. Normally we talk about the whole market and what's going on in the whole market, and I presented the guys like, what if we talk a little bit about the market, and then we bring it down to personal finance. What are you doing in your own households to make sure that your budgets are tighter, that you're spending less, that you're consuming less, that you're really building what I share on my channel as you're building your massive bank account. In order to have a massive bank account, you need to have a savings. In order to have savings, you need and investments. In order to have those, you need to have, and to be out of debt, or at least on your way to out of debt. In order to do that, you need to have a good budget. You need to be in control and disciplined with your spending. So there's steps that will get you there, but you've got to be able to take those steps in the appropriate order and then get disciplined. I know everybody listening here is already got a mindset that could very easily be disciplined because we don't subscribe to the man and to the philosophy and the marketing teams. There's literally people that are trained. They have PhDs in human psychology and human behavior that are trained to create commercials and marketing to separate you from your money without you even knowing you've just gave them all your money. And so what are our defenses against those types of things? Like, what are the things that we have to defend against those? And it's got to be this awareness of like, okay, wait a minute. I'm getting marketed to right now. Like I need to, be aware of that and be, I'm in control of my money. I pay my bills. My friends don't pay my bills. I do. The companies that run these commercials don't pay my bills. I do. So that's the idea of just being in control, but also realizing that we need to see what's going on in the macro, because the macro level stuff is going to help us real, I think it's going to help wake up more people to, wait a minute, we need to get more, we need to get tighter and more disciplined with our personal finance. And so I don't know guys where you want to start, but
I'm
Yeah.
glad. I'm
Go ahead,
glad
Scott.
you brought that up, and then I'll hand the mic over to the other corner to Shane. I love that you brought up. We're always constantly being marketed to, because the news is marketing us, the world is marketing us, every social media feed you're on, there's marketing everywhere, right? We just marketed Big Wheel. I don't even know if they still exist as a company. There's other products, not as cool as the Big Wheel was. I don't know, but we're also going to market to you right now, guys. Go get better prepared. And the way to do that is check out our sponsors and check out our affiliate systems. If you're not a member of our emergency prep and self-reliance group, go join it because we have some cool stuff in there. If you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, go subscribe because we do product reviews. You can check those out. And if you want to support the show a little bit, join our ham radio licensing contest. Go to the emergency prep and self-reliance group. Tell us where you are in the process, but then go over to hamradioprep.com and sign up. It's $79. I am 20% of the way through the course, and here's an accountability check you weren't ready for, Paris. How far into it are you?
I have ordered the course.
Oh, guys,
I literally last night I looked at my to-do list and I was like, dang it, I need to go at least watch a couple of those lessons.
go start on your license. If you've already got your license, upgrade, right? If you're already the very top echelon Elmers, you guys are the best. Everyone else that's in the contest gets a chance at winning one of two of these bags. It's got the Prepper Talk Radio swag on top, and it's got a Baofeng V5R. Those are yours. Right now,
Also,
it sits at about $100 value almost, and that's mostly because it's a $90 patch.
Yeah,
we
the
paid out
patch
the
is
nose
90.
for those suckers.
Yeah, the branding there is what gives us it's name brand. Hey, I just want to also mention that in the show notes, I'm going to put a link to my program that I'm developing that is ready. The part of it that's ready right now is helping you know how to discipline your spending, increase your cash flow. I have a program that if you follow it, on average, folks have shared with me that they have been able to free up $300 to $700 a month in their monthly budget every single month by following the steps that I share in that program. It'll be in the show notes. If you there's a link that specifically ties back to Prepper Talk Radio for the tracking. So I don't. It's a real long link right now. I haven't dialed it in yet, but definitely click the link in the description below that talks about that, and you guys can get get in on that, because that's something that's really going to be helpful to a lot of folks and families, especially with inflation the way it is right now. An extra $300 to $700. I mean, however much you guys can do within your budget, like that's going to be a big deal.
It's funny because we saved almost $600. I did this 3 years ago.
Yeah, you did
a little over that, and we saved almost $600 a month just by changing our budgeting. It was good, and it was really good to see. And now we have our own massive budget tracker that we use. That every time we pay off something that we had outstanding, we're like, yes, but we also are like, hey, that stockpile is getting larger. And
yeah, it's nice.
I don't use a bank; I use a credit union, and I don't invest in much other than gold and silver and food, water filtration, alternate cooking methods. Like, I'm putting all my eggs in the basket of self-reliance. And so I'm not the investor side guy that you're looking for, but it has saved me money.
Yeah. Well, you've got to have cash. You've got to have cash on hand for emergencies. And part of your emergency fund, when I teach people about emergency fund, actually is disaster. Well, what's funny is that actually I have a certification with a financial organization, and they have a module this year. I don't remember if it was in last year's module, but for sure it's in this year's module. They have a whole module on disaster preparedness, water storage, food storage, 72-hour kits. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Like stuff I had already added in over the years. They actually have now an official module in this financial course that I teach about preparedness. And I was like, yes, that's so cool, because that's something that's real. It's real, especially with all the natural disasters that are happening today. People need to have food storage, water storage, and all the gear, and that costs money. And how do you budget it in, and how do you prepare for it and plan for it, et cetera? So part of my emergency fund is teaching people to have food storage. Like, you need to have 3 to 6 months worth of bills in savings. Well, if part of your bills is food and eating, which everybody that is alive, your part of your bills is food and eating, store food, and then you'll be able to get to the point where you're like, okay, I can use the cash for paying the rent or the mortgage or the car payment, and then you don't have to use the cash for food because you already have the food.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Plus, it's a hedge on inflation as well. Buying your food now, because it's going to cost more next year. But I also wanted to say, Paris, I totally agree with your MBA, your massive bank account goal. I work on the same, but there's one distinction: is that I am my own bank, right? And we do that. I do that through gold and silver and other ways. Not a legal bank, right? That doesn't make any sense for me. But if we look in the news, what do we hear most about right now? I mean, it's all over the place. Imminent banking crisis.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that is everywhere. Mainstream, alternative media, so forth, and it has been for a long time. It really has. If you're watching like we do, and you're watching these alternative channels, that we've known this is coming for a long time, and surprised it hasn't happened. But it has. We've had banks collapse last year. Bank collapsed a month or so ago, and the status is that there's 63 to 100 plus banks that are on the verge of absolute collapse, and even some of these multi-billionaire hedge fund managers are saying, "Oh, we'll eventually see one or two banks collapse a week." Right. So that's one reason I don't trust the banking system. Yes, credit unions are better. They don't necessarily take the risks that banks do in the markets, right? Because they're not supposed to be nonprofit. I don't entirely understand. But
what's the insurance rate on those? Right?
I have no idea.
I'm a member of the FDIC, right? I have my funds are guaranteed safe up to what amount?
250,000.
And they increased it to 500,000, I think, this last
right, what's the
really?
That's the standard banking, right? FDIC is standard banking, right?
Whoever's a member bank, right?
Speaking of FDIC, I jokingly say that FDIC stands for funds don't increase correctly. So if you got your money in an FDIC bank, it's not growing.
No, that's
get it into you should have a minimal amount in high yield savings accounts, and then the rest should be someplace safer, like gold and silver. And if you're still feeling good about the market, be in there for as long as you can, but it's going to have some situations here pretty soon. So be ready to pull it.
Well, as a credit union, you're in the NCUA, which also is 250,000 now. It used to be smaller. And I will never put that much money into any organization other than myself.
Mostly, Utah Mike says, what do you use banking for? Mostly just transactions. Like right now, for me anyways, I keep it going for all the transactions that I have to do, because it's easier to pay my mortgage and car payments. I don't have car payments, but it's easier to do all that. And plus, what's fun for me, and I just did a video on this in my financial channel, is that I use credit cards to get the cash back, and I can have commas some years in my cash back. So it's like, if I'm going to buy something anyways, might as well get a discount / cash back from it. And
but you're paying every month, so you're not accruing any interest.
Exactly. And I pay it off every month. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's free.
I don't pay interest. I earn it.
Yeah.
And I get, if I have a cash back account that's 5%, I'm technically earning 5% because I'm buying it and getting the discount, and then I get the cash back and I pay it off every month. So I don't pay, they pay me. And so I'm like the credit card's worst customer, I think, because they pay me.
You're the one using it as a tool. Everyone else is being used for tools.
Yeah.
And I've been the tool, and it's not fun. Going back, like you talked about emergency funds. You talked about having that 90-day home store, like that. Not just 90-day pantry, guys. 90-day home store. When I've lost jobs, prepping was the thing that saved me between jobs. Like that's in and of itself all the reason to prep. Growing up, when my dad had clients that stiffed him, he worked for himself. He's a general contractor, but he's a residential remodeler at the time. He did some commercial too, but like he's fantastic. He is, what he can do with wood is like absolutely amazing. His woodworking skills and abilities, built some amazing things, but he did a lot of good stuff. And he was so honest that he would take a loss if he misquoted something. but also people would take advantage and like, oh, we're not going to pay right now. Anytime that happened, we were fine because we had a home store. We had soap. We had detergents. We had cleaning supplies. We had extra socks. We had food. Lots of food. Like, I'm a fat guy. I love food. I don't want to starve ever. That was my biggest reason for prepping all my life. I don't want to starve.
Mm-hmm.
And so that right there, having that savings account, your food savings account, yeah, you're buying it cheaper and you're saving money in the long haul, but also get regenerative. Goodness gracious, guys, we could be eating. I'm eating onions. 3 days ago, I pulled an onion from my garden from last year. I bought wandering onions, and they did their job. There's extras in the ground that I didn't have to worry about. They're back and they're blooming and they're growing, and I'm like, this is delicious. Having a home store and having a home food supply, whether that's a garden or some type of orchard or something else that's providing food, that helps you against struggling economies, that helps you in times of trial, in times of joblessness. Like, those are fantastic tools. Having
makes your dollar stretch longer.
chickens, yeah. And it's something you own, so you don't have to worry about supply chain breakdowns. You don't have to worry about banking collapses. Because if the banks go down and your money's tied up, how are you going to go to the grocery store and buy food?
Seriously, yeah, you got to have cash or gold or silver, something that can be exchanged, because so much is digital today. If you have a power outage, then you're screwed. You know, Shane was talking earlier about the banking issues, and we watch and follow a lady named Lynette Zhang. She's got a fantastic channel. She's very good at the economic situation. She loves gold and silver like we do. In fact, I've reached out to see if she could come on the show, and so we're trying to hopefully get that to happen. But she put out a live just recently about the FDIC admits banking crisis is near, and this is the 9th straight quarter of unusually high unrealized losses. And then she went into how the mortgage-backed securities are on their way again, and the things that they're propping up of the economy is becoming more and more obvious that it's a house of cards. And it's really crazy, because I even just got a note on my a notification on my phone today that the Fed is maintaining their interest rates as is, which are the highest that they've had in years. And what does that mean? It just means that they're continuing to smoke and mirror, prop us up. And like we talked about I think it was a couple months ago, like, this is an election year. So there's one of two ways they're going to go with the macro economy. Is they're either going to prop it up until if they lose the election, then they're going to let it fall and blame it on the next guy, or it's going to go the other way, and it's going to do what crash potentially. And then the next group is going to try to fix it. And it's just so crazy to think that there are some real things that we need to be aware of. Like, you need to make sure, I would say, on a personal level, this is where it comes, like, great. So, the banks are going to go under. Okay. What does that mean to me? Well, great. The stock market might crash and correct and have a 20, 30%, loss. What does that mean to me? Well, it means that if you got the majority of your net worth or your assets in the stock market, it's time to diversify and get yourself into safer stuff. I think, personal opinion, is get it into gold and silver, get it into high yield savings accounts that are a little safer, diversify into non-traditional commercial banks, like not the big names. Try to find some ones, and I have some that I put my money into. They're non-traditional. Well, I wouldn't say they're non-traditional. They're not name brand banks. And so those are some things to think about as well, and to realize that get out of debt and get your budget right, and then move forward. What do you, Shane? You got to hear.
Yeah. I got my hand up. I've heard a few different takes on this and few different ways of thought, and I kind of subscribe to it as well. So what's happening with these banks, and what I feel the plan is that these smaller banks, I mean, they're still huge banks compared to, say, like our local credit union, which is still a relatively small bank compared to the mid-sized banks and the large banks. What in my opinion is happening is these banks that are failing, and this was proven last year, these banks that are failing get bought up by the big banks, by the Chase, by the I can't name any more off the top of my head, but there's 6 or 7.
Wells Fargo, Bank of America.
Exactly. I don't know Bank of America, but yeah, Wells Fargo, HSBC, that these are the banks that cannot fail, right? The government will always prop these banks up, at least until a certain point. So the way of thinking is, if you have a lot of cash, that's where you want to put it. You want to put it in these big banks, because the banks have the government has proven that they won't let these banks fail, and that they, especially last year, some of these deposits of the banks that failed, their deposits were in excess of $250,000, but they paid them anyway. They guaranteed them anyway when they said they wouldn't. And so if you have a lot of cash, it's probably best to be in the big banks. And if you're in a small bank or credit union, which will likely fail, because that's the plan, in my opinion, that those assets will go to the big banks. And so there will be the Federal Reserve, and there'll be a handful of big banks, and that will be it.
Well, that's the end goal anyways, is to centralize the banking anyways. That's the end goal. And so you're right. Yeah, I feel like when the stock market is in flux, there's a lot of guys right now, a lot of very wealthy individuals who know and study markets that have a ton of cash right now. That's one of the things that Lynette Zhang said on this video was that, right now the real estate market, commercial and residential, is so propped up because the mortgages, the defaults, they're all going to come soon, and they're being propped up and extended out. And she's like, look, if I have a bunch of money in cash or gold or just whatever, something that's more secure, she says, as soon as all these things hit, I'll have a ton of money to buy up and take advantage of the opportunities. And so if that's in your, wheelhouse, if that's something that you feel like is good, then that's something that I would suggest is like, hey, put a bunch of money in cash, 4 or 5% high yield savings accounts, put it in gold, silver, whatever, something that's easily converted to cash, and then wait. Because when all this stuff comes crumbling down, you're going to be able to buy it up for pennies on the dollar. And if you want to be able, I think it'd be fun to be a landlord and have some real estate holdings, but I don't want to buy it at today's prices. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And I think that's a big plan for a lot of people. And I do see things that are wrong with that. In my own personal opinion, right? I mean, that has worked over and over again. It worked in 2008 through 10, 12, right? People waited, kept their powder dry, stepped in and bought properties, and it's worked out really well for them because the bubble got blown back up again and values went up through the roof and people made out like bandits. I mean, that's absolutely the truth. I don't know if that's going to happen again, personally. I think the next collapse will be the final collapse of our monetary system, of the U.S. dollar, whatever you want to call it, the reserve currency. And I don't know that there'll be much on the other side that you'll want to buy other than food, right?
Land, I would say land would be good.
Land to grow crops on, right? Land to grow food on. If you need to buy a house, that's a great opportunity to get yourself into a property for your own use. I don't know if I would be an investor or a speculator on the other side of this next crash. I am avoiding that personally. I'm looking for the retirement. I use the air quotes, the retirement, and I'm bugging out, and I'm keeping to myself at that point rather than trying to get into the market. Because I think if you get into the market, who knows where it's going to end, how low it's actually going to go, and if what the monetary system is going to look like. I would say be very patient.
I feel like that's one of the best reasons to buy gold, especially, and then if not silver, because it's a hedge against inflation. So even if the dollar dies, your gold and silver will be, whatever the currency becomes, your gold and silver is going to be definitely desirable to the new currency. We just saw, Saudi Arabia decided not to renew the petrodollar agreement, and they're going with BRICS. Well, that's huge. So there's some red flags, some flashing lights that are coming down the pipeline. That's like, wait a minute, what are some alternatives to this cash and digital society? And we're all for gold and silver, which, by the way, click the link in the description below for our affiliate links for gold and silver.
Yeah. Well, no, I was going to say, Paris, is about that the petrodollar arrangement. I did hear that, but I also heard the opposite was true, in that there is not actually a date assigned to that. There's no particular expiration on that. It was signed 50 years ago on the 9th of June, and it was supposedly some agreement that it was to expire in 50 years. And I guess that's not necessarily true. So it's not that it's in force, but we know that countries and and the governments and banks are moving away from the dollar, even though the dollar is showing relative strength to other currencies. Don't really know where that's going to go. I don't completely understand that. It could go do a crack a boom and go much higher and then collapse. But we're just going to have to wait and see, kind of like our last conversation, Paris, is that we don't know what the truth is. This is Web Dad. We talked about your topic in our last conversation. We see all this information out there. We don't know if it's misinformation or if it's valid information. How do we act on it, right? And so I think if it can be dangerous to think on the other side that there's going to be a lot of great deals and that we should take advantage of those deals. I'm not so sure about that. I'm very skeptical, extremely skeptical about that, about the other side of this crash.
What's funny is, like, if you look at, just do a Google search and look for some of these different topics. The petrodollar was dead 2 years ago. It was also dead 3 years ago. It was also dead 7 years ago, right?
Yeah.
The
It's going to die tomorrow. Well, tomorrow it'll die tomorrow. You know what I mean?
The housing market crashed this year. I mean, last year. I mean, 6 months ago. I mean, 5 years ago, right? There's supposed to be all these things. And I don't worry about planning for the supposed to be's, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my financial plan is my catastrophes negated.
Yes.
Living a life that I don't have to stress about the unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
Focusing on preparedness as a fortification or an insurance policy. All that life insurance stuff is great if you know how to use it. It's great for the beneficiaries later in most cases. But real life insurance is what keeps you going while you're alive. Prepping is life insurance, my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Prepping is what helps you live a more refined life, meaning you have time to make yourself better. You have time to change plans because you've got resources on hand. You've got skills. I think that's the most underprepared for thing that most people forget to do is focus on skills.
Yeah.
Mental health, physical fitness, skills on cooking, cleaning, alternative methods of medical, right? Foraging, animal husbandry. Like, there's so many. I mean, we can go down the list and down the list.
Well, here's the thing. I absolutely love that, Scott. I agree 100%. However, what I've found is if somebody's so worried about putting food on the table, they're so stressed, they have so much anxiety about their bills. When it comes time, okay, maybe that from 9 to 5 they're working, and then from 5 to 9 they're stressing. Because they're so stressed out about their money, they're not taking the time to learn, to grow, to build. I have so many, like there was one of the leaders of our church who founded our welfare program, was literally passing out scriptures. And this kid was like, can I sell this for food, for money, to buy food? And he realized that people need the word of God. They need to have those things, and they need skills, and they need training. But if they don't have food, it's like this, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if they don't have that first initial, like foundational needs taken care of, they're never going to go up the pyramid to the point of self-actualization where they can actually have the time to reach those skills. Here's an example. I know so many people, they're like, they have more month at the end of their money. And they're like, what am I going to do? I have more bills to pay and I don't have enough money to pay it. Or how many of you have made good money in your life and you open up your bank account and you're like, where did it all go? So I did a video on this a couple of weeks ago on my YouTube channel, and I had a comment that was so revealing. I loved it. I was so grateful for the person who commented, because they said, I lost my debit card a couple of weeks ago, and I have more money in my bank account than I've had in a long time. And you know what I realized is that impulse buying is probably where you're going wrong. Like, I bet all the things you're swiping your card, they've made it so easy for us to just click a button and the money's gone. Click a button and now our credit card went from 500 to 1,000. Click a button on Amazon, forget it. You know what I mean? Like,
so easy.
I tell my wife all the time, look, we need to, here we go. Like there's a cap on what we can do every month on Amazon. And the point is that it's just so easy to consume, so easy to just, and then we get all stressed out and we're like, I'm so worried about calling the debtors, calling the credit cards, trying to work this arrangement, work that arrangement. I've got a side hustle now. I can't learn a skill because I got to drive Uber every night to be able to make extra money to pay for the, credit card that I just, racked up. And so to me, once you get your finances in order, once you kind of eliminate some of, if not most of the stress around that, now you can say, okay, wait a minute, I can take that class, that ham radio. I can afford even with 10% off. Some people are like, that's still too much money right now. Even with some of the things that people are doing, like you've got to remember that I feel like there's just a lot of people that just really need to get control of their money and eliminate the stress of that. And then once they're able to do that, now they can say, okay, now I have the bandwidth, the mental bandwidth to go and, learn that ham radio skill, learn that, fire starting, learn first aid, learn how to, oh, wait a minute. I have so many people that talk to me a lot about food storage, and they're like, I looked online and they said it was $7,000 for a year's supply. Like, there's no way I can afford that. Well, that's true. Not most people can't.
And that's the most expensive food.
Right. What you can do, though, is spend an extra $25 at the grocery store this next week and buy 4 or 5 cans of, and build your supply over time. And that's where, education comes in. That's where awareness comes in, and helping people understand that you don't have to do it the expensive way, but that because of that marketing, everybody thinks that's the way to do it. And so they just give up. And I'm like, no, you don't. So that's part of bringing awareness to people about how to do this on a budget or how to do it more effectively is so powerful and so good, I think, anyways.
What's funny, because like your statement earlier was just rings so true. They have more month at the end of their money. Been there, done that, right? Overhauled my finances. Then add things like I've been really focused the last couple of weeks on trying to solve some of the problems in life. And I'm like, how can I be more resilient? How can I have more money rolling in than going out?
Yeah.
Right. And you can only budget so much. Right. And that's, I feel like, is level 1. Level 2 is increase the floodgates, right? Multiple streams of income. And the analogy that hit me was, how often do we think I'm going to go create multiple streams of income, and I'm going to get this one started and this one started and this one started, and our little pond is right here, and we're building the stream out to that river, or we're building a stream out to that lake. We're building, right? But we start digging this one, and then we start digging another one. We've got 6 different trenches we've dug, but none of them are connected to a source.
Yeah.
And it's like, stop. Get one done. Get one done that's generating enough income that it makes a difference with or without you.
Yeah.
Right. So I've done that with one of my things, right? And now I'm working on number 2. And it's like, you build out multiple streams of income and finish one first to get it to a point where it's mostly sustainable with little work on your side, or maybe enough that you've got a schedule for it. And then when you have free time past that, now add something else. It goes back to you said you work 9 to 5 for the guy. And then what are you doing from 5 to 9?
Yeah.
One of the best ways to eliminate fear and that anxiety is to be doing something good.
Yeah.
Be anxiously engaged in a good cause. And I feel like that's where most of us get distracted and forget we can do something. I am 100% guilty of that. And so I'm trying right now. I'm building up stream number 2. And once that's active and running, then I'll build up stream number 3. And it doesn't matter how great it is or how small it is. It makes a difference.
Yeah.
When I get these little commission checks and these little deposits every week, and I'm like, oh, hey, all right. I go back to the list of things I need and want. And I'm like, okay, I can buy, for example, my ham class. I finally bought the ham class.
Yeah.
Or, I can go buy that freeze dryer because, why not? Right. But look at the situation. Okay. If you don't have a 90-day supply of food in your house, as soon as you've got your budget straight, go buy a couple bags of rice.
Yeah.
Buy a bag of beans, a bag of rice. Like, you don't need to go crazy. A can of pre-mixed food is going to be more expensive than a bag of rice and a bag of beans, right?
Yep.
Go get those things. Add to your pantry.
It's amazing how, I still deal with stress and anxiety of my own. I think there's no way to eliminate 100% in life, or maybe there is. I don't know. I believe that if you have a big, fat savings account, you're going to be able to weather a lot of storms, and stress and pressure and frustration can be at least reduced dramatically. And so, to me, before you start, I want to just interject, Scott. I agree 100%. Between the time that you get your budget right and you can finally start buying these things that you need and want, build a buffer, build a buffer zone of each person is going to have to decide how much that is and what they're comfortable with. But for me, it's, I'm self-employed. I never know every month. Like, I have an idea of what my income is going to be, but it varies. And my wife's as well. And she's self-employed too. So we have a little bit of like stress just every month because we've been okay. And God's been gracious to us. However, there's still a little bit of that stress of like, okay, how much are we going to make this month? Like versus, because it fluctuates. We don't make the same every month. It's within a relatively small margin of error. So if you're like that, you really need a bigger buffer zone. If you know exactly how much money you make every month and it's always the same, then your buffer zone can be a little shorter, a little smaller. I recommend, though, at least several months, several $1,000s worth of buffer, so that if anything happens, you lose your job, something comes up, you slip and fall, maybe your deductible on your medical expenses, like your health insurance, make sure you have that deductible in savings, so that when you do get, if you get in a car accident, you rush to the ER, and then all of a sudden they send you a bill and your deductible is, $2,000, you're going to be freaking out unless you have $2,000 in savings. Well, and then you know what I mean? So if you have the money, then you pay it off and you just rebuild it.
Yeah, and there's one thing I wanted to comment. Sorry, I clicked on this early, but the practical posted here is, and I had my own personal experience on this as well, is that if you have the knowledge and you have the medical skills, and there's all these people who run to the ER at the drop of a hat because they have no idea what's going on with their daughter or their child who fell down and maybe broke their arm or has a medical emergency. But if you have that training and that learning, and you can avoid that trip, and maybe that first aid kit, and you can avoid that trip to the ER and save yourself $500. Yeah. Simple example. My daughter, a number of years ago fell and hurt her arm, was holding it like it was broken. And we're like, okay, I guess we should take her because it was after hours. We should take her to the ER, get an x-ray and so forth. And, if I would have spent a little more time maybe assessing and so forth, after the x-ray, it was the most amazing thing. After the x-ray, she was healed. It's like, oh wow, it's not broken, I'm fine. It's like, oh my gosh. And it cost us, it was probably more than that, but yeah, just having that little bit of patience, stepping back, holding back, having some learning, some training, so that you don't go into panic when that money needs to be spent, right? Mm-hmm. Like Practicals is saying here on that one skill, and there's a dozen other skills that you could have that could save you big time, just like that.
So here's what I'm doing, and if you guys have better ideas, I'd love to hear it. I have reallocated an hour of my day where it's broken up into 3 segments. I spend 20 minutes on fitness. I spend 20 minutes on my spiritual relationship with God in the scriptures, reading good books, and then I spend 20 minutes on building another income stream, or learning a skill. Thankfully, I have extra time, so I'm able to do more on Saturdays, but that's what I do every morning. On Saturdays, I spend extra time working on my income stream too. So like all in all, every week, I spend probably 3 hours on building my next income stream, and at least an hour and a half working on a skill as well. Right now, that skill is getting my ham license. But I found that by dedicating an hour and splitting it up into small chunks, it's a lot easier for me to accomplish each of those.
Yeah. What's funny is people might be saying, Scott, 20 minutes isn't enough. But you know what? 20 minutes compounds over time. Mm-hmm. And you'd be surprised. Like I read books. I read 10 pages a night because that my brain just, for some reason, I get ADD. I don't know if I'm ADHD or not. But after 10 pages in one book, I'm like, my brain is like, you need to go to the next book. So I've read like a dozen books. I don't know how many. I've read a lot of books this year, and I only read 10 pages a night. And it's just crazy how fast it comes. I believe, and I share this, and this is one of my mantras: learn to live within your means and then grow your means. You cannot make it in this world with over time. I built a passive income such that I actually semi-retired in 2017. And I had a passive income that paid all the bills that I had at that time. So a couple years went, a year or two went by, and Scott was like, "Hey bro, you need to start a course where you teach people." And so that kind of got me on the YouTube channel bandwagon, and then building a course that I could sell to make more money. But for a couple years, I was kind of semi-retired, and my wife was frustrated because she was like, "Get back to work. You can make more money for us." Anyways, the point is that over time, I realized, you know what? The passive income that I had built is no longer enough to pay my bills after a certain number of years. So I did need to go back. You know what I mean? So there's a reality to learn to live within your means. And then you have to grow them. Like you have to either get better at what you're doing in your business and reinvest into that business, or get better at education and get better things. So you get promotions at work. If you're going to work for somebody else, make sure you're more profitable to that business so that they want to promote you. If you're not in a position where you have upward movement, or you're not in a position where you have a significant business, you got to have a side hustle. You got to have something that's going to build some extra income coming in, especially with the way things are going. I mean, today, 50 years ago, you could live on one income in a family, could be fine. Today, you got to have two or three sometimes, seems like, in order to survive. And that's by design. They literally wanted, and we can get into the whole reasons why they did it, but they figured, we're taxing only one income earner. What if we got the wife to go back to work, and we could tax them too? And so there's some conspiracy behind why there's the feminist movement and all that. It kind of why it really started for real. But I think that if you learn to live within your means, so get disciplined in your spending, put the debit card away, for goodness sakes, if that's your weakness, like that comment that I got on that video that I did, and get disciplined with your spending and figure out a positive cash flow. Get to a point where you have more coming in than what's going out. And then let's go find ways to make more money and then keep that distance. Keep the distance. Don't go spend. If you go make an extra $1,000, don't go spend it. Like, you know what I mean? If you make an extra 1,000, maybe go spend an extra 100 or 2, or maybe reinvest it, or do something fun. Definitely you need to do something fun. You have to have a budget for fun, for blowing it money, I feel like. Otherwise you're going to burn out. Yeah. However, you got to still build that savings, build that income. The millionaires become millionaires by saving money, not by spending it.
So what's funny is, as you were talking about that, and as I was like, I wonder how much my side hustle has helped me. So I pulled up the numbers. In the last 13 and a half months, I've put in less than 5 hours into this, and I have made $7,097.
What? That's awesome, bro.
There are so many things you can do to make money, right? Lean to your skill set, what you do, what you can, you can make money with things you already know how to do. So find a way to add an income stream that'll produce enough money to alleviate some of your financial burdens, but more importantly, give you the money to go buy the stuff you want. Yeah. Like, doing what I do on the side has gotten me some free gear, like good stuff, solar battery banks, backpacks, coats, things that I use for prep. And that's all. I chunk it into the business, and the write-offs, and there's other stuff. You don't have to just sit and worry about how am I going to pay my bills next month. You can go start doing something. Do something that is in your wheelhouse that you're good at, and let that fuel your future. And then keep working on skills. Like, one of my favorite things, and this is I'll shut up soon, but one of my favorite things is eating. And if I'm not eating, I get hangry. And if I get hangry, I don't think very well. But if I've got food in the fridge and I've got food in the pantry, I can fix my hangry, and then I can actually get something done. Right? In our last episode, we talked about one of the things was effective. Putting yourself in an affective situation, meaning that are you making your decisions because you're in an affective state where your emotions or your hunger or your sorrow, your frustrations, or whatever you're feeling is impacting your decision making? If you're out of budget and out of line in life, it absolutely will. But if you can get yourself to a calm state, you can make some really good decisions, and you can plan out some really cool ways to make additional money. I mean, shoot, you go get a paper route. Get a paper route. Like, start something. Do something.
Mm-hmm.
Find a side hustle. If you're an expert in something, sell that knowledge.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. You can make a huge impact, and on your wallet, on your budget, but also on your preps and on your future. And the more I can do for my family without having to increase more and more time spent, the better.
You know, I just probably want to say in my closing comment is that we need to be aware that the system is rigged to work against us, right? That it is not set up in our favor. It's set up in the favor of the elite, those who, the corporation. I mean, I don't want to say the evil corporations, right? Because
we already know
that's not all of them. It is a lot of them, but it's rigged in their favor, and which makes it harder and harder for us, especially those who are uneducated, who don't know what's going on, who don't understand our current awful situation, that it is extremely hard to overcome, because we all feel good when we buy something, right? We add to our preps.
Yeah, there's dopamine hit.
Absolutely. But man, like you said, Parrish, I feel so good with a nice stash of precious metals, or a little bit of cash in my wallet, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It is so, and
I bought some more gold today myself, actually. So I'm like,
nice.
On the dip, buy some on the dip. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's a much longer conversation to get into, but I think if we realize that this is rigged against us, it's not in our favor, that we need to fight against it. It is a battle. It is a war. We can call it a war. I think that's fair. And if we're aware of that, then I think we can overcome.
Yeah, okay. I think it's important to really sit down and think about, what are your goals? Like, what do you really want? And realize that, financially speaking, anyways, there was a great question that was posed to me. I work with a lot of other coaches and financial professionals, and one of them presented a question in one of our trainings, and he said, this is a good question to ask people. Would you rather live in a mobile home with a car that's paid off and be financially free, or have a 5 to 6 bedroom house with a Mercedes or something else, and you have to work 50 hours a week to maintain it? And the peace, I mean, I would love to have a nice house and a nice car and all those things. Sure, we all want that. But at the end of the day, the peace that I would have just having a modest home, a modest car, and being financially free, like, that's because what's cool about that is that you can then take the time that you now have, because you bought back your time, and you can go build something, and you can build your income, and you can get the money to go buy those nicer things, but do it the right way. Buy them with money you already have. Don't spend tomorrow's money today. Spend yesterday's money today. Save first, spend later.
Yeah,
don't
absolutely
spend now and hope that your tomorrow's money will pay for what you just bought.
It's truly that's
savings, what they want us to do.
Savings fuels economic growth, not spending, right?
Exactly.
It's not debt that fuels economic growth. It's those of us who spend. Sorry to interrupt you there, Parrish.
No, I think, debt for capital reasons, debt for R&D, debt for
right.
That is good debt,
production.
but debt to consume, in no way, dude. Like,
right. Yep.
Savings is way more effective and way more important. If you can if you can make the switch to saving first and saving up for the things you're going to buy, and then buying it with cash you already have, you are going to thwart their plans, and you're going to win. You're going to be in a better place to win the game. And I feel like that anyway. So that's what I'm trying to help people understand, is to switch their mentality of save first, then buy. Don't buy first and then hope to be able to pay it off later.
Yeah.
So that was a really good. That made me think for a minute. Like, would I rather have a modest home, a paid for car, and be financially free, or have all the nice, fancy consumer, all the stuff, the glittering, fancy stuff? And I'm like, you know what? I'd rather be modest and just be free and have the peace. That's what I would say.
Is the millionaires that I know well, don't have anything flashy.
Mm-hmm.
They have everything budget. High, let's say this, high mid-range budget.
Mm-hmm.
They don't drive the best cars. They don't buy anything brand new. They know that cars are depreciate, so that it's not. They don't waste their money on things that don't make the most sense. What I love is, for me, having the peace of mind of preparedness, having the peace of mind on my finances. Right? When I've been upside down, it's not fun. And those of you who are in that, I totally understand you. We've all been there. All three of us have been there.
Yeah.
Completely lost everything.
Sucks.
And it is horrible. And if you're there, we're pulling for you. We're praying for you. Everybody else that's listening to this and everybody else is part of this, like, please share in our group. I'm going to make a thread for this. Share in our group things you're doing to build an additional income, to replace additional income. We love to hear it. We love to share it, because there's someone else in this group that might have an aligning idea or interest to help them create a better income for their family. Preparedness family is what it's all about. Our community is my favorite thing. So please join us at Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. Get in on the conversation community, and let's help each other win. Because it's not just for the apocalypse. We've got time between now and then. We can have a better quality of life now by being better prepared. You guys have any final thoughts for the day?
No, other than just, be wise. Don't be caught up in the consumerism of the thing. And everybody listening to this, I think you're already that kind of person.
Yeah.
Just dial it in and do it and be on purpose with it. Dial it in and be on purpose with it. And let's go make a ton of money so that we can actually affect change. I have a mantra too that I love. Money doesn't make you, it reveals you, and then it magnifies you. So if you're a good person with good values, you need to be making more money so that we can magnify that in the world. So that's my final thought.
Amen. Well, guys, thank you for listening to Prepper Talk Radio. It's been a fun one. This has been our weekly live. Make sure you're part of the group. Get in there. Be part of the conversation. If you're thinking, hey, what can I do to be better prepared? We've got resources for you there. Additionally, check out our friends. We got a lot of affiliate links we work with. Check out our friends over at Jase Medical, JASE medical.com. Use the code PrepperTalk to save $10 at checkout. Get your emergency antibiotics, right? That's one layer of defense in your preparedness quiver. And then go learn all the things you need to learn for natural remedies. We've got a book on our website. You can go click on the link and it'll show it. It's fantastic. We've got a couple of resources along those lines. But go get those. Build up that protection. Add shields and layers of defense. Thanks for tuning in tonight and not tuning out. Stay ready-minded. Keep your head on a swivel. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Take care, guys.